will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I will now introduce our board of directors. We have Jonathan Henderson, Mike Rowley, Madeline DeMatenon, Tasha Woods, and I'm Jason White. We are joined by Superintendent Ginger Haberer. We are also the Executive Director of Student Services, Kelly Kronbauer, and Executive Director of Finance and Operations, Kim Snyder. So board first, our action item is the consent agenda. Actually, before I do that, sorry, I'm trying to make sure I'm following my new script here. Board, was there any motions for updating the agenda? I just needed to make sure I asked that before we start. No? Okay. All right. Then we will move into the consent agenda. Board, we've had time to look at the consent agenda.
I move that we accept the consent agenda.
I second.
All right, Tasha has moved that we accept the consent agenda. Jonathan has seconded. Board, any discussion? All right, then I'll call the vote. Roll call vote. Jonathan?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye. Aye.
Madeline?
Aye.
Tasha?
Aye.
And I also vote aye. Consent agenda approved. Next, we'll move into administration. Oh, hold on a minute. Sorry, too many notes on my before we move forward, I absolutely want to acknowledge Mary K. Pratt. We have a special ed teacher who has been teaching for a total of almost 24 years. And she's been with us in Ellensburg for 14 years. So thank you, Mary, for all of your service. All right, and now we'll move into administration. Ginger.
So for superintendent's update, I have a couple of items. First, want to just celebrate the good work that our early learning center is doing, and our early learning teachers and our early learning director, Julie Hamilton, is on Zoom. And Julie, I believe that you have a short presentation just to share with the board some of the great work that you guys have done recently.
Hi, thank you, board, for allowing me to come and share just a little bit about our early learning update. Leslie, if you give me permissions to share my screen, I'd love to share just a brief presentation I have for you guys. All right, thank you. Let's make sure that you can see what I am seeing. One moment. Okay, are you able to see my early learning update? Nope, okay, let's try one more time. Let me find it one moment. I'm sorry, it went away as I was trying to find it for us.
Again, thank you, Julie. And we do see your screen, so thanks.
Perfect. All right. All right, well, I am Julie Hamilton, and I am the Assistant Director of Early Learning and Elementary Success, and I am very fortunate to be able to support our preschool through fifth grade classrooms. I just wanted to take a minute and highlight some of the celebrations from last year. We have an amazing early learning team, both within our district and within our community, and I wanted to highlight some of the work that we have been working on this year. So as you remember, in February, I joined you and I was able to share a little bit just about our preschool expanding into a more inclusionary experience for our preschool students. We are open to all three and 4-year-old students in our community. We have a large number of students with an IEP. We have 11 students who have an ECAP slot, which is a state-funded slot, and then we also have community tuition slots available. We have a total of about 60 students this year, which that's grown quite a bit. The structure of our classroom, we have 2 classrooms, 4 sections per each classroom. So we have 2 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon. And we are watching really closely as those numbers climb to see how we can best support our students in small environments. If you take a look at this first picture, it's one that I am just super proud of. This wasn't even necessarily a special day in one of our preschool programs, but as you can see in that picture, every single one of the adults in the classroom is hands-on, actively engaged with students and working with them on language skills and social emotional skills. And I just really am proud of the amazing staff at our Early Learning Center, where they just are truly there for our students and able to meet our students at their points of needs. So we have 2 lead special education teachers, 6 full-time paraprofessionals, and we also, because we're attached to our school district, have an awesome preschool evaluation team, which includes our school psychologist and family liaison, speech language pathologists, and our occupational therapists. And this team of specialists is able to support not only our own programs, but also students in our early learning community from community preschools or families that might have concerns about students. We're able to help evaluate and support students along the way. One of the exciting things we're hoping to move towards next year, rather than just being an evaluation team, we are hoping to be more of a proactive team where we are able to implement a preschool MTSS team. So starting in the fall, we are hoping to kick off once a month where we open our doors to community members, so family members and community preschool directors who might have a concern about a student and maybe just want to get their eyes on a kiddo early. So our team will come together and meet with parents and preschool directors to be able to talk about some of the concerns that they might be having. This team will brainstorm together ways that we can help support along the way. And we're really excited about just offering this proactive approach to being able to support students early on. Transitional kindergarten. This is a picture of our very first class cohort of ITK students. This is the future class of 2035. This is their end of the year celebration. So you can see all smiles there. Almost every student was able to attend that evening. In fact, we had over 70 people join us that evening, just families and siblings. And it was really a great time of just kids coming together. And it's always exciting to establish those family connections so early on. Our 2 TK teachers there, Katie Pomeroy and Angelina Buchanan, have worked really hard to just build a close-knit community with not only our students, but families. I believe they're still even having park play dates and meeting over the summer and have just really helped to alleviate some of that stress about what kindergarten looks like in the fall. So this group of kiddos is super excited to join each of our 4 elementary buildings next year. And just some of the fun outcomes, some of the important outcomes that came from launching TK last year was that it really helped us work closely with our community in a collaborated recruitment effort to be able to identify some of those unmet needs in our community. For example, we had 17 kiddos on a Head Start waiting list that were not eligible because they were slightly over income. So we were able to open our doors to 20 more students to attend kindergarten or transitional kindergarten prior to kindergarten, who otherwise would not have had access to join in any of those experiences. So it has made a huge difference in student growth and social emotional learning, language, and academic areas. And it's just really helped to reduce those barriers and some of that stress. It's helped to just strengthen that bridge between preschool and kindergarten. One of the fun things that we were able to do is we partnered with our community, the Kittitas County Health Network, and myself were able to work together on a partnership to bring PEI, their Project Wild and Growing Up Wild. It's their preschool through second grade is kind of the focus area there, lens of a specific project. I believe that Megan Rivard shared with you a little bit about that, but I also just wanted to highlight how grateful we are for KCHN and Nicole Matthews, and of course, Megan Rivard and her leadership. Also during this presentation, our teachers, we had about 12 teachers from our community daycares and preschools, as well as our school district P2, that were able to join together and just learn from Keen. They got to observe Keen in action in the outdoor program prior to this awesome day. And there's just a couple fun pictures there of their work together. Our early learning leadership team, this is something we were super excited to reestablish this year post-COVID. It's something that we had just begun prior to COVID, and it had to look different the last couple of years. But our early learning leadership team, you'll notice some of our partners that joined us from Creative Kids and ECLC. We had representation from Washington Outdoor School, from Seedlings Head Start, Ellensburg Christian, the Discovery Lab, and then of course our awesome P2 teachers as well. So the leadership team has kind of two components. The first one is monthly partnership meetings. So we partner a K2 teacher with a preschool director or lead teacher in our community preschool, and they meet each month in kind of a smaller setting where they're able to just ask questions and really develop a relationship. They also go into each other's classrooms, so they have peer observations both within the K2 setting, and then our K2 teachers go into our preschool settings. And it's just a really nice time to be able to get a view of each other's worlds and to help strengthen that bridge again of some of the same similarities and differences that we have between the two. And then quarterly, we come together as an entire team and we participate in shared professional development. Our focus this year was on implementing project-based learning in early childhood. This is a book study that our team walked through together. And then we also had some of our local presenters come in and share with us on this professional development. So this year you can see that we heard from Discovery Lab, Washington Outdoor School, PEI, and Keen. Discovery Lab led us through a story workshop. Natalia Parker's team is amazing, and she opened her doors helping us launch our transitional kindergarten program this year, and has just been an awesome partner. But these are pictures of some of the PD that she shared with us around story workshop. So for our youngest writers, it's really about helping them to develop that story and to create the story and have the expression of being able to build and tell a story orally. And then we transfer it onto paper through pictures and letters and words and things like that. So it's a picture of just us having that professional development opportunity together, but then also these are pictures from an actual classroom where teachers, this is our TK classroom, were able to get that training and go back and implement it within their own classroom. So it's just a powerful time to be able to learn from one another and the expertise in our early learning community, both within and within district and in our community. One more thing I just wanted to point out was our monthly daycare directors meetings, and this was one of the blessings of COVID, if you will. From our time in COVID, we really just had to bond together to know that we really needed frequent updates. We met, oh gosh, sometimes weekly last year. This year it's been more of monthly meetings, but really the biggest goal of this time together is just for directors to join in as they can or as they have concerns, to be able to assist in communication, to be able to ask questions, or if they're concerned about something, to be able to kind of just get everybody on the same page for me to understand where they're coming from, or them to ask questions. And Gemma Wolfenberger was able to help us kind of create one of these zones for each of our elementary schools, just to help parents identify, okay, which daycares and preschools are zoned in each of our new elementary buildings. So that's been an important piece, and that's something we plan to continue. Some work on the K5 side of things. Our K2 teachers formed a phonics team this year, and we walked through some pretty important topics around phonics. Our K2 teachers are masterful at pulling together many resources to support phonics instruction. So if you walk into any given K2 classroom, you'll see that we have our adopted FPC curriculum, and then many things that teachers have also gathered along the years just to be able to support instruction. So all of that is a wonderful thing. We also knew that we wanted to come together and be able to adopt and align our scope and sequence a little bit more tightly. So through the work of this team, we were able to identify that IMSE, or the Institute for Multisensory Education, scope and sequence is one that we could agree with and get behind for K through 2. I won't go into too much detail on that because I know that Jen Kuntz has shared some of this work also, but we did adopt their scope and sequence for the phonics team for K2 to follow. And they also have just adopted, most importantly, I believe, the approach to phonics instruction of just that multisensory, making sure that kids have multiple opportunities to not only see the letter or hear the letter, but to be able to trace the letter and speak the letter, and just using more of their senses to be able to make sure we cement those phonics skills. So that was a huge, exciting lift, and a big shout out to some of our instructional leaders. Shannon Selsler helped lead us through many articles on brain research, and Peggy Kelleher helped sharpen our lens on multisensory approach to phonics instruction. And we are just grateful for their instructional leadership and look forward to what these shifts in our phonics instruction will do for our kiddos K2. And just a little bit deeper on IMSE, just an update there. Peggy Kelleher continues to be just our guru for this in our district, and we are so very grateful for her instructional leadership. She's led many learning labs this year for just refresher courses or overview to teachers that maybe hadn't participated yet in the IMSE training. And she has just been a wealth of knowledge. So we've gotten to see her interact in small groups of students. She has taken some of the parts and pieces of IMSE and helped us distinguish what works well in whole group and what's better in small group. And she's helped us identify some of the resources that each of our K2 classrooms need in order to better support students in multisensory approaches, things like sand and sand trays or crayons and screens. So she has been a wonderful asset, and I know our teachers are eagerly awaiting hearing from her again during one of our upcoming training days. So that is just a brief report of early learning and some of the exciting things that have happened this year. We are grateful for the opportunity to grow and expand our programs and to continue to deepen our partnership with our community. Are there any questions at this time?
I have a question about what current capacity is and what kind of needs you see going further as you're planning to expand.
So into our preschool program?
Yeah, or early learning. Mm-hmm.
Early learning in general. Yeah, so for our TK classrooms, looking at TK, just as a reference, we had about 34 people that were interested in our TK program, and we had to cap it at 20. So we will continue to look closely at that list and the prioritization of that. And we will look and see just how many students we're able to support next year. Again, really looking closely at the two requirements for their age to be 4 by August 31st, and also the requirement that they otherwise don't have access to preschool within our community or within district. And then for our preschool programming, we are looking at, we haven't set a hard and fast number, but we do intend to keep our numbers low. So we're at that 15 to 20 stage. And as we start to fill past that, that's when we will have conversations about how best to expand into a third classroom once we have the FTE and the numbers up to that.
Julie, I just wanted to say thank you for this update. Parents qualitatively know that childcare is difficult in Kittitas County. Quantitatively, because of the work of KVHN, we now know what that gap is, and it's significant, which is difficult when we align with long-term research that early education really is that pivot point for academic opportunity. So thank you to you and your team for growing this program, and not growing it just within the learning community of ESD, but really your strong partnership with families and the community partners that you listed. Thank you for that.
Yes, thank you, Tasha.
Thank you, Julie. Really appreciate your work and the work of your team in supporting our earliest learners. So thank you.
Of course, thanks.
So board, just a quick update. As you know, throughout last spring, we had multiple different ways that we were communicating about the new attendance zones, and our principals got together and did an amazing job. I think it was June 8th, hosting an open house where they reached out to the parents that were in those boundaries and just heard some great feedback. They had a great turnout, and it was really a good opportunity for parents to see the school that they were zoned for. And some of the kids were, once they were there, it's like, well, this will be fine. I feel excited about going here. So just appreciate that. And then recently I, put the letter that we put out to parents. We did it in email last week and we sent it out as a text today. But it basically is a reminder to our elementary families about where we're at in the process. We did receive, as you see in the letter there, over 200 interdistrict transfer requests. And as you know, the attendance zone, again, thank you, Jonathan, for your help and leadership on that committee. We had a great group of parents and teachers and administrators and board members, and all of those notes are still posted on our website under the board committees, so people can go back and take a look at that. But basically, we had over 200 interdistrict transfer requests, and we are in the process of going through the tiers that we identified both at the board meeting as well as during the meetings that we had with the attendance zone. And it's also on the inter-transfer request form was listed on there. And so we did put out that on August 19th, those parents that requested an interdistrict transfer will be notified. All parents will be notified of the school that they will be attending for next year. And then the 26th will be the time period where all parents will be notified of who their teacher is. And we also heard from parents that having to just call the phone number for transportation was every year was something that was a little bit more difficult. So Mike Welch and Carol got together, our new transportation director, and we together, and I was with them too, we created a form. So now parents can also go online to give them that information for transportation rather than just having to call the phone number. So we're trying to streamline our communication in a way for parents to be able to let them know about their needs around transportation. And in the communication, we also had the map. And as you know, and thank you for our partnership with Right at School, we will have that before and after school care, and we included that link in there as well. We've had our bell times on the front page of our website, and so we're excited. September 7th we'll be ready, and I think principal staff are excited to welcome our students and have a great year. And that's the end of my report. Oh, wait, one more thing. I did hear, Jason, I think you shared with me a community concern around a scheduling situation at one of our schools that students saw schedules that weren't completely correct. And schedules are actually created and managed at the school level. And I will say that the principal immediately, when they saw that that happened, got on it right away and addressed that issue, and also sent information to parents to let them know about it. So that situation was corrected, and we're moving forward.
All right, thank you, Ginger. All right, board, that takes us to bond projects update. I don't think your mic's on.
Yes, I'm trying.
There we go.
Can you
Thank
hear
you.
now? Yes.
Okay. Damon Gardella with OAC Services. I'm here tonight to give you an update on the 2018 bond program and the projects and status of those three projects. I do a slideshow here. Okay, next slide. We'll start with Mount Stewart. Hard to believe, but we're coming up on 1 year since the school has been occupied. It's seems like it's gone really quick. So we are finalizing the closeout period on that project, which goes for a year after the project is turned over. So working on closeout documentation still, not only with the contractors and architects, but with OSPI. The warranty period, standard warranty period on these buildings is 1 year, and at 11 months after turnover of the project, we do what's called an 11-month walkthrough, where we walk through with the school district and identify any items in the building after it's been used for 11 months that need attention, may need corrected, that weren't caught when the building was first turned over. So we did perform that on Mount Stewart. We walked through and we identified there was a few items on there, which was nice that how many there were. It was very few. And those are being addressed. And then phases 2 and 3, that 11-month walkthrough, because it was a phased project, will happen in the spring, because that's when those phases were essentially turned over to the school district, which is everything to the south of new Mount Stewart. So the gymnasium exterior and the irrigation and landscaping, everything south of the school there. So we'll do that in the spring. Certificate of occupancy, we're expecting that right in early, the permanent. We do have the temporary early September. There are, I walked around the sites today and verified everything on the punch list. Couple remaining items. Most of those will be taken care of first of the week, which is just some curb crossings down here south on Cora. And we're waiting on one item that is a material item. And I was told on for that it was 2 weeks. So I will be sending the city an update tomorrow on the punch list and try to verify and close out the items that we do have completed, so we can just focus on those couple remaining with them. Next slide, please. Ida Nason, we're not quite at 11 months, but we do have our 11-month walkthrough scheduled. That'll be on September 15th. So that'll be basically 1 month before the warranty period for this facility is up. And so we'll perform the same thing on this school, which is go around and identify everything that may need corrected that happened over the last 11 months and take care of those as well. This was not a phased project, so it will encompass the entire project on Ida. And same thing with the permanent certificate occupancy on this school. They're running concurrently. So I believe we're down to one item on the school, which is a material item, and it's 2 weeks also on this school. So as soon as we get those in, the contractor will install those. Next slide, please. Now the fun one, Lincoln, the exciting one, the busy one. Next slide. So I'll just go through and kind of show you some pictures of some updates, what the school looks like if you haven't been through there. And then at the end, I'll kind of talk about what the next steps are. So these are just a couple of pictures of the bathrooms. The tile is being installed in the bathroom. Fixtures are being hung, sinks, toilets, urinals, everything is going in the bathroom. So you can gives you an idea what kind of the bathrooms will look like with the lights above the mirrors. The mirrors aren't in yet. So getting very close on the bathrooms, and then partitions still remain. So the partitions between the toilets and stuff, those are yet to go in. Next slide. Gymnasium. It is, for all intents and purposes, complete. It is a beautiful gymnasium, as you can see from these pictures. It turned out really well. All the windows and the natural light in there, and the color schemes and everything. So really pleased with how that facility turned out. Next slide, please. Just a couple of touches we added to the building. So the intent of this project was to modernize the school with keeping kind of the character of the original school. So everything behind the scenes obviously is upgraded, your HVAC systems, electrical, plumbing, all that is upgraded, obviously with the gym addition and some things like that. So this is just kind of where the new and the old kind of meet. So these are the stairwells, which will remain the same look and feel, but they added some new light fixtures to kind of put some modernization in there as well. So these are a couple of the stairwells in the school with the new fixtures and how that'll look. And I believe this fixture is themed kind of throughout the school in various locations as well. Next slide. Couple snapshots of the classrooms. Classrooms, again, almost complete. There's a couple ceiling tile to go in. That's very minor work. And then some tackable wall surface to go on the magic doors and the walls. And that's really all that remains. Carpets installed, casework, lights are in, HVACs and everything's working. And we will be accepting, I'll cover that in a second, but furniture into these rooms here very shortly. Next slide. So furniture, all the new furniture for the school starts arriving on August 15th. It's a roughly 2-week process to get all that furniture moved in, assembled, installed to the various locations it needs to go. Towards the end of that moving process, furniture process, we'll also have a moving sequence going on, which has a lot of moving pieces because we're moving some teacher supplies from throughout the district at other schools over to Lincoln, as well as some offsite storage for the teachers that had stuff and items returned into Lincoln, and then obviously from this building. So there's a lot of moving components. So it'll be a very busy, I think right now we're scheduled for 4 days of the movers that'll be on site and getting everything into the building where it needs to be. We've also been reaching out to the city and being proactive on this project. This week we brought out the city building inspector. They were on site yesterday, met with Public Works on site today to try to get them involved early and identify any issues that they may have or we may need to address before the building opens so we can minimize any impact after the building opens as far as getting in after hours and the weekends and things like that to correct everything. So didn't want to take up too much of your time, very high level update, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you have, give you more detail on anything.
I'll go first. Yes, thank you. And I know that we had a meeting with the city. I was able to join Ginger and you all with that. So thank you. I know we're moving quickly ahead. So going back to Mount Stewart, just a quick question on that. I know that you had said 2 weeks, I think, for the concrete work. How long have you been waiting on the concrete labor to finish the sidewalk transitions at the road crossings? Because we've been in that school for a year.
Yeah, so there was some discrepancy on between what the contractor saw on site and what the city was asking them to do. So they actually met not last Friday, the Friday before, and came to an agreement on what that solution would be and how that would work. The concrete was demolished last week. And now that they've demolished those, so they receive what's called a truncated dome, which is the yellow pad that sits at the crossings. So they had to order those after they came to agreement what it was. So concrete will be poured next week. Those have to be poured into the concrete. So it has to happen at the same time. So contractor right now has said that they are scheduled next week to pour those crossings.
Okay.
So to answer your question, it's only since they came to an agreement, it's been about a week and a half.
Okay, perfect. And then I think the only other just concern that I guess I have is we're less than a month out for Lincoln to open. I'm trying to imagine what it'd be like as a teacher, right? Because we've been renovating our house forever and living in construction sucks. And I can't imagine working in it. So I appreciate the update. Are we going to get another update at the next board meeting to kind of get a sense of where we are at Lincoln? Because I just, with punch lists not fulfilled with the other schools, I just want to have a good sense of what's going to happen when we open Lincoln.
There will be a punch list.
Okay.
It's very rare in construction that you don't have some sort of punch list. And a lot of that is just because a lot of times it's either things aren't known or something was installed. They know that it needs to be replaced, but yet they have to order replacement you still have to open school on time. That's the priority. And we already know the contractors already approached us and said, we're going to provide you a list of some of the things that we're going to be coming in weekends and things and doing, because our priorities get the school open. And these are items that aren't going to prevent the school from opening. And we will be back after hours and things like that to address them. So we already know that's going to happen. What we're trying to do. So the punch list I'm referring to is the punch list from the city. We do internal punch lists with our architects and engineers. They go through the building and they verified off drawings. There are some items that the city identifies or may see that they did not see, or maybe it wasn't on the plans, but it is required, wasn't caught till at the end of the project. That's not uncommon. Obviously, we want to try to minimize that, but it does happen. So the goal is temporary C of O. So we get school open, and we have a schedule to do that. And I think teachers are coming back into the building roughly the 25th. So the temp C of O is already being worked out with the city. They're going through testing right now, the elevators and fire alarm systems, everything. So the contractor's already working on all those authorities having jurisdiction to come through the building and verifying that things are working as they should. It will be functional, it will be working, everything like that, but there will be minor items that they will have to come back and do. And they're making the conscious decision to do that because they do want the building to open, and that is priority.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, and I think, Ginger, as long as we can get until the school's open, we want to continue to get updates for that. So
the 24th is our next meeting. So if you're not here in person, we can have you Zoom in too, so you can do another update about Lincoln, where we're at.
Just a second, when Jason said, it said 8/22 as that move date. And I know that last year's Lincoln staff, they had a move date and then it moved, I think, a month, 2 weeks at least, where that move date happened. So I'm reassured to hear you say that that is priority, because it is priority that we open that school and that the teachers have their rooms ready to do what they need to do. So thank you for that. This was a 2018 project. It feels like longer and shorter at times that we've been able to work with you. Can you remind me, is this project of 3 schools coming in on budget?
It is. And a year ahead of schedule, according to the bond that was ran. So for the board members that weren't here back in 2018, early on, we worked with the district and our consultants to figure out a way to expedite the entire bond program. It was laid out in a very linear fashion. Lincoln was actually slated to open the fall of next year. By concurrently working on Mount Stewart and Ida at the same time, it shortened the entire program by a year, and Lincoln will open up a year ahead. We kind of started seeing the escalation in prices and things like that. And that was before COVID, but things were rapidly increasing even back then. So we were really trying to figure out how can we minimize price increases, escalation, everything like that, and offset as much of the unknown in the future as possible. So condensing that schedule was the way that we saw an opportunity to do that. So.
And also added to complexity was the unknown of once you got into Mount Stewart and started knocking on walls saying, this is more complex. Let's look at a brand new school instead of a remodeled school. And so I would like to say, I think I'm the only board member here who was there originally, that, and it's been my first and probably only public works project I've been a part of, that it's pretty remarkable that we have a condensed schedule, that it's coming in on budget during COVID, when we've heard everything about supply chain issues, workers dealing with quarantine or just not finding anyone, the great resignation. For Ellensburg, I want to extend a thank you to you and your team, because you've had to be creative and consistent, and we're going to have beautiful schools on time, early, and on budget. So thank you. But I will hold you to 8/22.
Definitely.
Thank you, Dana. Do you guys have any other questions?
And just to follow up to that supply chain issue, last time I was here presenting, we did have an issue that we had found a solution to. I just want to let everybody know that that switchgear, the permanent switchgear, is installed in the building and is up and running. So we ended up not having to use the nuclear option and using the rental equipment. But the story there is we knew opening school was priority and we had to get a plan together because it wasn't an option not to. So.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. Thanks. Okay, that will lead us, Ginger, do you an update on negotiations?
Yes, and you have the PowerPoint in your packet. So we, as you know, have been in negotiations with EEA, our teachers union, and both teams have been working really hard together to come to an agreement. So the dates that we've met with EEA have included.
Ginger, I'm going to pause you for a second.
Oh.
Can you pull up the, Leslie, can you pull up the PowerPoint? Thank you. All right, perfect. And you're sharing that with the people on Zoom, right? Okay, perfect. She's doing that. All right, thanks, Ginger. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
That first date should be April 21st, so there's no one there. April 29th, May 6th, May 19th, May 13th, or May 31st, June 7th, and then August 3rd and August 4th are all the times where we've met. After the June 7th meeting, the district and EEA agreed to go to mediation. And as you know, mediation involves having a mediator from PERC, which is a state organization, meet with each team to help the teams come to agreement. And so in mediation, the district met with EEA on August 3rd and August 4th. And the remaining scheduled times include August 31st, September 1st, and September 2nd. So you can go to the next slide. So on August 4th, language that went back and forth between each party. Is it up? Okay, sorry. On August 4th, language that went back and forth between each party and it was packaged together with a salary proposal. The last proposal, because we received oral offers through the mediator that ESD received from EEA included a focus on financial improvements and would have resolved other outstanding issues such as class size and time issues. The cost of the proposal and legality of some pay provisions remained a concern. The district recognizes and definitely appreciates all of the time that teachers put into their jobs to serve our students. And in response to the deemed done days, the district offered optional days. Leslie, go to the next one. So the last proposal that crossed the table on August 4th was the district's 3-year financial salary proposal to EA, which was year one, a 5.1 or 5.5% plus one paid optional day for classroom preparation prior to the start of the school day. So it'd be non-scheduled and timesheeted, which monetarily is equivalent to a 6.05% increase in pay. Year two was 2% or the state-funded inflationary adjustment, which is also known as IPD, whichever is greater, plus one startup day from year one becomes scheduled the day before school for staff preparation activities. And then year three, 2.5% or state-funded inflationary adjustment, whichever is greater, plus one additional optional day for professional development. And that, of course, startup day continues. All the days that were added in the previous days throughout continue, adding a total of 2 paid days as a result of the overall package. And we're definitely confident that our teams will continue to work together to come to an agreement. And that's my update.
All right, thank you, Ginger. Board, any questions? All right. Next, we will move to business, our audit report.
So we had mentioned this in the another board meeting in the past that we had a clean audit for the 2021 school year. So I'm just going to go through the audit results of that. There's two different types of audits that happen. And we have a financial audit, which is performed every year. That's looking over the financial statements and how they were prepared and the internal controls for those financial statements. And then a single federal audit can be done every year too if we spend more than 750,000 or receive more than 750,000 in federal money. It's actually spent more, not received. So, and then we have accountability audit, and that's done every 2 years. We did not have an accountability audit this year, but we will have one next spring. And that's for more internal controls, going out to the schools and seeing cash receipts, internal controls, just different record keeping internal controls, and more of an in-depth audit during that time. But again, we will still have a single audit and a financial audit. So the results of the audits, the financial statement audit, this was considered a clean audit. What that means, there was no uncorrected misstatements in the audited financial statements. There was no material misstatements in the financial statement corrected by management during the audit. So sometimes during an audit, they'll come up and say, oh, you missed this maybe, but it wasn't a big deal that you missed it, but let's go ahead and clean that up. So we had a few of those, not a lot. They were in the notes. I just missed a note that was supposed to be in there, and we cleaned that up and fixed it and moved on. Internal controls over the financial reporting. Auditors reported no deficiency in the design or operation of internal controls over financial reporting that were considered to be significant deficiencies. Auditors identified no deficiencies that were considered to be material weaknesses. Auditors noted no instances of non-compliance that were material to the financial statements of the district. And then our federal audit, single audit, ESSER funds were audited in 2021. Internal auditors reported no deficiency in the design or operation of the internal controls over major federal programs that were considered to be significant deficiencies. Auditors identified no deficiencies were considered to be material weaknesses. So when they decide, they go through, they look for major financial programs when they're trying to decide what they're going to audit. So those were the results of that. So as I say, it was a clean audit. We didn't have any findings or management letters. And what I want to say is it's a team effort through the whole district. And we've had really good audits in the past years, and we couldn't do it without the whole district being in compliance and doing what a great job that they are doing.
Thank you, Kim. Board, any questions for Kim? No? All right. Then we will move on. Thank you, Kim. Really appreciate that update. And that's great news. We love clean audits. So congratulations. Yes, for everyone. That's right. All right, so we're going to move into policies. So policy 5A, the first reading of policy 6112, rental or leasing of district property. And I'm going to turn this over to Ginger. And Ginger, I think it might be good for some of our newer board members haven't been through so much policy review that Tasha and I went through for several years. So it might be be good to kind of help them understand how this process works, if you don't mind. So go for it.
So about 2-3 years ago, we partnered with WASDA to help us make sure that all of the policies were up to date in our board docs. And we went through a rather extensive process, and really a shout out to Meg Ludlam, who was our former board member. She was amazing in partnering together with me and Matt Siski at the time. And we sat down and spent many hours looking through policies and bringing them to the board. And so when you look at our policies now, I think we have the confidence that we are up to date as much as we can be. Every quarter, policy news comes out through WASDA. It's in the board docs, as you guys have probably seen under policy if you scroll all the way down. And they, every quarter, give us the updates on the wording that needs to be in our policies based on new statutes or WACs that have been passed or changes with the legislators. And so most of these ones, all of the policies that we're looking at tonight just include what we might say are not like a huge substantial change in the overall policy, but there's either things that have been added or just some wording that's been changed to better align with our state statutes. So, and what we've done in the past is if there's something substantial that was added, we bring it to the board. If it was just like more semantical types of changes, the board at that time had decided that the committee, which would be a board member, which we probably want to look at creating again, myself and Leslie now would be looking at it together. And if we said this is not substantial, the board gave us that authority to say, let's, put it on the agenda, but we wouldn't need like a first reading. But since we have newer board members, we thought it'd be important to kind of go through that process of a first reading for all of the different policies so that you can kind of see what that process. So normally you have a first reading, and then these policies will show up again at our board meeting on the 24th to be, to go up for adoption. It's appreciated if you read them ahead of time. If you have a question about the policy itself, to send those to us, because there might be somebody in the district that I'll need to reach out to for some answers for some of the real specifics on there. So that's been part of our process too, that when we post a policy, to try to get those questions ahead of time. And you can ask them again at the board meeting, but that way we're sure to have the answers and we don't have to carry it over to the next board meeting. So this one is about renting property, and basically what was added is way down on the bottom about it being a violation of district policy for a renter or leaser to knowingly carry a firearm or a dangerous weapon onto the property. So then after we look at it, is there any discussion particularly around the change? And if not, then we go to the next policy. Susan, would you add anything to that?
No, thank you for that explanation. So any questions about the process or any questions about this specific first reading of this policy?
So I have a question about the process.
Okay.
Or these are policies that are in place that we're making a substantial change to, or you're choosing to make a substantial change to.
Oh, I'm not choosing it. No, these are ones that come from WASDA,
Okay.
and they are listed in the policy news report that is in board docs. And I can show you where it's at after the meeting too, because you can always go down and read through. It's probably a good idea to do that. And then what they do in the report is they have 3 different categories of policies. One is essential. So all the ones on here, they listed as essential. In other words, we need to change it. And if we want to do something different, we would probably want to look at it and run it through our legal counsel to do that, which we've done a couple of times. But otherwise, the red line on this is straight from WASDA and their legal group, trying to make sure that school boards across Washington are all stay aligned with what the state statutes require. So is there any discussion on this change?
This one, you can see the markups on it. And
Yeah.
so this one, like many of them are keeping us in line with RCWs that may have changed during the last legislative process. And that's what this one is reflective of.
Yeah, and all of the ones we posted have, on one of them, we did the clean one too, but I asked Leslie to make sure we get the red line ones in there too. Okay, so the next one as first reading for order of business, and basically is just adding a few things. You can look at the red line version of that in the process that we use for our board meetings.
This one has option 1 and option 2 in it.
Yes, so it was interesting on this one because we are routinely hosting online and in person. Not all school districts are doing that. And so, so we didn't choose the option of saying that we're just going to do virtual because I think we still want to do in person. We want to still offer both. So, so you can see that down there at the bottom where there's the option. We're taking the option that we want to always have the online as well as the no, option 2 would be ours. Yeah, that we're not gonna do only online unless there's an emergency situation, basically, or only physical unless there's emergency. So when we go to put that in there, if you adopt that piece of it at the next meeting, then that's the way we'll put it is with an option 2. Any questions or discussions on that one? Then the next one is involves the policy for the board consent agenda. You can look at the red line on that one. Get that opened. Any questions about this one?
The only clarification maybe on this one is that it does say, let's see, each board, let's see. Copies of the proposed agenda, minutes of the previous meeting, and relevant supplementary information will be provided to each board member at least 3 days in advance of the meeting. So I just know that's something to point out. And I think we do see supplemental, we don't always have the supplemental information 3 days in advance because some of that is just so timely that it has to come, but it has to be put on the agenda. But I think it's a good reminder that yes, for the board's full review, whenever absolute possible, it's very helpful that it's it's posted at least 3 days in advance. And the thing that I always like to just add to is this is the minimums. So I think it's really helpful that we don't just post this 24 hours prior to the meeting, that if we can post it sooner, we want our community to be informed and not have to just.
We've rarely posted it on a Tuesday. Almost every meeting we posted on Monday so that we have the weekend to, see if there's any supplemental things. And we've moved our agenda setting back to Thursday too, which is helpful to be able to get things in sooner. So, yep, no, I appreciate that, Jason.
Okay.
Okay, next one is 55011, sexual harassment of district staff prohibited. Let me pull that one up. Are there any questions about this one when you looked at the red line on it? That one's pretty straightforward. Okay.
Yeah, it's just like the one sentence added.
What's that?
Just a couple sentences added.
Yeah. So then the last one is first reading policy 5001, hiring of retired school employees. And if you have questions about this one, I'm going to defer to Kim on that. Do you have any questions on this one?
No.
Okay. All right. So that's our first reading then, and these will come back and we'll be asking for adoption of these at the next meeting. And we'll probably have some more on there that these are most of the essential ones, and then the next one are ones that are recommended. So we want to look at the recommended ones too. And then the third category is optional. And we'll bring those in, but I try to get the essential and the next tier in first.
All right, thank you, Ginger. So now that will take us to board reports. Tasha, is there a teaching and learning report?
There's not a report.
All right. I don't have much of a board chair update. I just would like to say thank you all of you for today's work session. I feel like that was very productive, a full day's work. That was wonderful. So thank you for that. I don't have a formal report to say. I know I wasn't able to be here at the last board meeting because there was a kind of a joint effort. And I'm going to try to compile some of that information that I attended for that meeting. It really is about growth in our city and in our county and kind of how do we move forward with that. So it was a great event that was put on by the county and the city. And so we were the only representative because unfortunately it was scheduled exactly during our board meeting. So I was the only one that was able to attend, but I feel like it was very beneficial. And thank you, Tasha, for sending out your information to the board as well on a lot of that information as well. So that's all that I had, unless Ginger, anything else to add? Okay. All right. And that will take us to public comment. So for public comment, the board will allot up to 60 minutes tonight as a total time allotted for public comment this evening, and each speaker will have up to 3 minutes of time. The board is not obligated to provide additional public comment time to accommodate everyone in attendance. The board is not obligated to respond to questions or challenges made during the public comment period, and the board's silence will not signal agreement or endorsement of any speaker's remarks. In my capacity as the board president, I may terminate an individual's remarks when the allotted time has passed. I may also interrupt or terminate any speaker who is making uncivil comments. Uncivil comments include, but are not limited to, obscene comments, comments that are defamatory toward another person, or commentary that is an unwarranted invasion of privacy. The board reserves the right to have anyone removed who refuses to adhere to the rules and creates a material or substantial disruption of the meeting. Personnel matters are generally private and administrative in nature. Constructive criticism can be helpful. At the same time, the board has confidence in its staff and its programs and will act to protect them from unwarranted criticism or disruptive interference. Complaints or concerns received by the board or any board member will be referred to the superintendent and will not be considered or discussed by the board in this setting. I'd ask that you respect all staff members' privacy and consider putting any concerns you have in writing if they pertain to a personnel matter. The board can then review and forward those to the appropriate administrator. Leslie, are we ready for public comment? Okay. Okay, perfect. So while we have the last people signing up, just so we're aware, individuals in person wishing to be heard by the board need to be signed up to speak, and those on Zoom need to add their names to the document in the Zoom chat box. If you are unable to do that in Zoom, individuals may be recognized within the Zoom by using the icon or emoji to show you're raising your hand for public comment. Once the board chair calls on an individual, they will identify themselves by stating their name and address for the record. Individuals will proceed to make comments within the 3-minute time limit. All right, and with that, Leslie, are we ready to open public comment? Okay. Go ahead and call our first person.
Mary Gordon, 2720 Cove Road. I'm here because I love our community and I love Ellensburg School District, and I want to stay involved. I just have some random thoughts. My first random thought is that congratulations on your audit. That's such an amazing thing. It's a big deal. I come from a finance family. I would suggest a nice card to Paige Sorensen because it's her audit. She is no longer with the district, but it was her team that got you through that audit or got that information done last year, and especially in the absence of Brian Aiken, who was out a lot. So that would be a really nice thing for her. I was curious what the plans are for the secondary libraries. I know there's been a lot of drama of losing our librarians, but I just was curious what we're going to use that space for. I hadn't heard anything. Listening to the gentleman talk about the schools, I know there's a lot of internal things going on. We have incredible community support with all of our buildings, and this is just my opinion, but our buildings right now look terrible. There's weeds up to your knees at Morgan everywhere, just driving in tonight. And I know that there's a lot of things going on, but as a community member who supported all of those bonds, I want to make sure that our district can take care of the buildings that we are giving to the community, and they look awful. So just my opinion. Lastly, I would love to request a projected budget on Parent Square. I know it's the new app that's coming. We talked about at one board meeting, it was $13,000 to $16,000. It seemed a little bit of a shot in the dark, and I'm just curious, again, with this terrible budget crisis we're having that nobody seems to talk about, I'd like to know what's going to be shelved so we can afford that app. And I called 2 school districts that use it. The app sounds fabulous. I agree that we need something, that I think communication is really, really important. Both school districts said that there's a lot more cost than the $13,000 to $16,000. So I just would love to see what the plan is. I know Mr. Kronbauer kind of made an offhand comment that we would maybe get kiosks for families who didn't have smartphones. So wondering what those cost, who's going to manage those for the families who need help, because I know our school personnel are really busy, especially in the mornings. And then I've just talked to several teachers and actually one elementary admin, and nobody's heard a word about it. Like nobody's even heard about it. So I'm just curious. In his presentation, he said he didn't drill down to the teachers. And I guess I'm just here to say that drilling down to the teachers is the wrong. And it's just such a prime example of why people have been standing at this microphone. You should drill up from the teachers. The teachers should be the very first place that you go to talk about these things. You have, and you need to get their buy-in early and often, because they're the ones who have to use it. It's going to be a major change, and I use apps all the time, and I'm sure it'll be fine, but I think we need to change in thinking.
Thanks, Mary.
Good evening. Am I supposed to share my address? Is that typical? 2603 Millstone Loop, Ellensburg. I actually wasn't planning on speaking this evening. I was just planning on being here to observe, learn where we're at as a district, hearing the good news about Lincoln moving in and those sort of things. However, as EEA, we want to be clear that there is more on the table than the financials that were shared here today. We also want to be clear that, once again, while we stuck to our agreed upon norms where we didn't share any of the proposals with our constituents, that the district has violated our agreement and trust during our bargaining process. We agreed that there would be no public sharing of our proposals, and what the district has shared is deceptive and misleading to only share bits and pieces of what we are currently in mediation on. So there's still much more to be bargained and considered, and that's why we're in mediation. So thank you.
Thank you.
Evening, Jeff Hashimoto, 6170 Manastash Road. I understand you guys have, school board, you've been here since 8 or 8:30, and I understand the pay for that is not very good or zero, and I just want to appreciate your service to our community.
Thank you, Jeff.
Okay, perfect. So Leslie's saying that's everybody here in person, and just one last call out for those that have joined us via Zoom. We don't have anyone signed up as of yet, and this would be the last chance to raise your hand if possible to make sure that you wanted to do the public comment. So since it's okay. So we'll do one last scan that Leslie's going to look at, and then once Leslie confirms there's no, I don't see any hands. So, okay. All right, then I'm going to close public comment. So that would take us to new business. Are there any proposed items for future consideration? No. Okay. Okay. Then that would take us to the meeting closing. Is there an executive or closed session tonight, Ginger? No. Okay. Anything for board calendar? Okay. Is there any clarification and next steps? Nope. Okay. I bet there's signing of documents. All right, perfect. So board members, do not leave until you've checked in with Leslie. And with that, that would take us to adjournment. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move that we adjourn.
Second. All right, and for the record, Tasha has moved that we adjourn, and Jonathan has seconded. We are now adjourned. Thank you.
So whatever is the next part, this is the